Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Charles Sabanto, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Show. We cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment. We'll give you guys a fresh perspective on things that we see. And today we got a hell of a show in store for you guys. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and sub to the channel if you haven't already. We got some pretty serious news here. As you guys know, we discussed it previously that Stephen A. Smith's contract was basically about to end, right? And he was in the process of renegotiating a new contract with ESPN. Stephen A. Smith made it clear that he wants to be the highest paid personality at the network. Essentially, or allegedly, what had happened was they had offered him an $18 million year deal, right, per annum. And apparently, Stephen A. Smith rejected it because he wanted $25 million per annum. I think he wanted a $100 million deal. So there were reports that were kind of going back and forth about it, and they were having some disagreements about this. But then something interesting happened. I came across an article yesterday from The Sun, which basically had the following headline: ESPN's replacement for Stephen A. Smith revealed, with uncertainty over his future and not budging over $25 million contract. And I was like, wait a minute, what? Is there a possibility that ESPN is already in search to find somebody to replace Stephen A. Smith if these guys don't come to an agreement? So this is really what this article really focuses on, and that's what we want to get into today. But before we even get into what this article had to say, today's video is brought to you by our sponsor, Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. For example, I am super excited about the upcoming MLB games. With Game Time tickets, I can easily pick the best tickets for me. I love that I can choose between different deals. I have the option to select the cheaper deal, the best option deal, or my favorite, the flash deal. The flash deal gives me the option to find discounts that I can only find on Game Time. Once I select the ticket I want, I can view my seat. And it's not just restricted to baseball. I can also look for the best ticket deals for other sports like football, the NBA, concerts, comedy, or other theater shows. Included in my purchase, I also have a 24-hour return guarantee, a lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. And remember, whenever you support this sponsor, you're supporting this channel. Thank you. So let's get into this article here. It continues on by saying, Stephen A. Smith and ESPN have yet to come to a new contract to keep him at the network. The two parties have exchanged figures, but so far nothing has been solidified. Stephen A. Smith has not agreed to a new contract with ESPN. ESPN reportedly offered Smith a $90 million contract over 5 years, an annual value of $18 million, according to Puck. However, the network is far from what Stephen A. Smith wants in his deal with ESPN. With ESPN First Take host looking for $25 million a year. His contract expires in 2025, and Smith is willing to move networks to get that value. With the threat of Stephen A. Smith leaving ESPN looming, let's take a look at some potential names that could replace him on First Take. Shannon Sharpe is the logical first choice to take over on First Take, on the First Take desk in the event of Stephen A. Smith leaves. Sharpe has grown into a fan favorite and already has experience alongside Molly Cameron, other guests. The former NFL tight end recently signed an extension with ESPN, so he will be around for the foreseeable future. Sharpe could help provide stability on First Take during a transitional period away from Stephen A. Smith. It then goes on. They have Ryan Clark. You have him as well, and then of course you have Shaquille O'Neal, and finally they have Pat McAfee is already one of ESPN's high-paid talents, so promoting him to First Take could be the easiest solution to replace Stephen A. Smith. The biggest issue would be finding a way for him to continue the Pat McAfee show while hosting First Take. McAfee certainly has the personality to fill the void that that Stephen A. Smith would leave, and he has a large fan base behind him. It feels unlikely that he would set his own show aside to move to ESPN First Take, though. And then it mentioned Jason Kelsey and a few others there. So that's what the article had to say there. What are my thoughts on this? Look, I think that we are in a transitional period in sports media. There's a lot of change that's taking place within the landscape. And quite frankly, there's more money in it now than there's ever been before because of what's happening with these independent dollars, right? There's a lot of money in the independent space, a lot of money. And let's just be honest. If we're looking at the sports media landscape, there are only a few guys paying top dollar. Few guys, right? You have DraftKings, you have Prize Picks, you have Game Time, you have a few others. And the fact is, if you can have access to these people, you can make yourself a nice coin. In the case of Stephen A. Smith, I believe, is positioning himself to not only have the independent wing of what he's doing, but also to transition onto another network or have his show picked up by one of the majors, Amazon, HBO Max, and one of these guys, and kind of transition that way, right? I think Stephen A. Smith is beginning to realize what some other people like Dan Le Batard and others have realized, which is, look, there's some money out here. Bill Simmons is another one. Bill Simmons went on to build a $100 million company, right? So there is money out here, and I think Stephen A. Smith is beginning to realize that, he doesn't necessarily need ESPN. He doesn't necessarily need ESPN. In the case of ESPN, as the article entailed, they could be some possible candidates to replace him. Shannon Sharpe would be the most obvious one. As a matter of fact, Shannon Sharpe and Stephen A. Smith have actually alluded to this being a possibility. They've actually said it. If Stephen A. Smith decides one day to move on and he wants to do something else, Shannon Sharpe can fill the void. So, of course, you have Shannon Sharpe there. Pat McAfee, I definitely think he has the personality. But as the article said, we don't know how he's going to work between the Pat McAfee show and ESPN First Take. Look, I think Stephen A. Smith also has aspirations beyond the world of sports. I think that is true. Even ourselves, we've been really against discussing politics, but with the way that the world is going right now, we decided that, look, we have an opinion on certain issues, larger societal issues, and we want to give our opinion on it. One of the reasons we're going to start a second platform towards the end of this year, and I hope some of you guys check that out. But Stephen A. Smith has an interest in politics, right? And politics, if I'm being honest with you, they're just a larger range of people that are interested in discussing politics. Sports can be limiting at times, right? Because it's seasonal and all of that stuff. But in the case of politics and what's happening in the world, things are happening every single day, right? And that may be something that's more appealing to Stephen A. Smith, and one can understand why he would want to go do something else. So I totally understand it. And remember, Stephen A. Smith is in his 50s, right? He's been doing sports media for quite some time. I think, at least 25 years now. So for him wanting to transition into something else, that could be it. Maybe, this could be a thought. Maybe he's like, well, I want to go do something else, but if you guys pay me an incredible number, maybe I'll stay. And maybe if they're not willing to hit that number, he's like, well, if you guys are not going to give me this number that would kind of cause me to kind of rethink my strategy, then I might as well go on and go do something else, right? That could be a possibility. I don't know. So the question to the audience is the following. What do you think ultimately happens with Stephen A. Smith and ESPN First Take? Do you think Stephen A. Smith decides to leave the network and go do his own thing? Or do you think ESPN matches his offer? And remember this. One of the reasons, or the primary reason Skip Bayless left ESPN back in 2011 was because they couldn't agree on some money. That was the reason as well. And Stephen A. Smith himself has talked about how shrewd ESPN bosses can be about opening the bank. So these are my thoughts. Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comments, and we catch you guys on the next show. Peace.